Thank you for joining me today on the Moms Who Know podcast, the podcast for moms who know that when they take care of themselves, they can take better care of everyone else. And one of the best ways to take care of yourself is through a morning routine. If you haven't yet, you'll want to get my free download. You can go to momswhoknowpodcast.com/resources and get a big list of ideas of things to include in your morning routine. Today's podcast is all about balance and really figuring out that dance between what you want to do and what you need to do for your kids and what you can choose to let go. I love this conversation with Sarah Beth from Sarah Beth Yoga, and I know you will too. So let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and my guest today is Sarah Beth of Sarah Beth Yoga. Sarah Beth, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am super excited. I was telling Sarah Beth before the call, it's always fun when you have followed someone for a while to get to have a conversation with them. And that's how it is for me with Sarah Beth. I have been doing yoga from her YouTube channel for many years. She has a fabulous YouTube channel, great yoga videos. You guys know that I do my yoga every morning. And so Sarah Beth and me, we hang out. I mean, she doesn't know it, but we do. So it's fun to have her know it now and have you be on the call. So thank you again for being here. This will be fun.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, I would love to start off with talking a little bit about your journey. And I know you've been on YouTube and doing yoga for a while. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with doing YouTube videos.
Yeah, so I started doing YouTube videos because let's see where I actually start with this. I was having a turning point in my career when I was younger. I was a model for 7 years and I didn't really love it. I didn't love the way it made me feel. I didn't love the pressure that I felt, and I didn't love the kind of the deadline coming up. Like once you pass a certain age, you just hit a different stride in modeling. And, I didn't love it. So, I told my boyfriend at the time, he's now my husband, that I was freaking out. I was trying to figure out a different career path, and I dropped out of college a while back. It was just kind of a darker time. And I finally went up to him one day and I was like, I got it. I have an idea. I'm going to be a barista. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a barista. I'm going to learn how to make coffee and I'm going to get tips. And, it's going to be fun. And he's like, Sarah, I think you need to think a little bit bigger than that. And he challenges me a lot in that way, so it's very positive. It's very supportive, but at the time it's very infuriating. And he was like, so if you could do anything and there was no limits there, what would you do? And it made me flash back to a moment where I was in a yoga studio, seeing a sign for yoga teacher training, thinking, like a little child, like, oh my gosh, what if? And then immediately cutting myself down and saying, there's no way. What do I have to teach? How do I have anything to offer anyone? I can't do headstands in caves. So there's no way that I could be a yoga teacher. But he encouraged me. He pushed me. And he said, if that fails, then sure, go be a barista. Not that there's anything wrong with being a barista, but he wanted me to really dig deeper. And I'm so glad he did, because, as I was taking that training, he also gave me a couple books. One of them was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the other one was The 4-Hour Work Week. And, I read both of those books, front to back. And then it kind of sparked up this idea that I should create an online business. And that was at the same time that I was doing the yoga teacher training. So I put those two together and made a YouTube channel. It wasn't a yoga YouTube channel. It was called The Sarah Beth Show. So it was really like anything that I wanted to say or do. And then it just so happened that it turned into yoga over time, because as I was teaching local classes, I started teaching a donation-based class. And then that donation-based class, the location fell through. So then I definitely just turned straight to YouTube. And that's how it all started. That's how it all began.
Oh my goodness. That's so interesting. Okay. That brings up so many questions for me. So first, what kind of things did you talk about on the Sarah Beth Show?
I laugh about this because my first video was from my husband's, like I said, he was my boyfriend at the time. It was in his dorm room on his laptop webcam, angled up at me with terrible lighting. And I was like, way too chipper. You know, when people are new and you just don't have a voice yet, and it was just really annoying. So way too chipper. And I was just trying to explain what I was going to talk about. And I was like, so I'm going to talk about yoga and lifestyle and raw food and stuff. So I laughed like that's what I was talking about was stuff.
I love it. Okay. But that's part of the progression, right? I mean, you have to start somewhere, but I love getting a glimpse of where you start, because if people follow you now or see your videos now, I mean, they're very polished, they're very put together, and so it's nice to know that, like everybody, you just start where you are. The other question I had for you, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that absolutely. We all have to be able to start as beginners if we want to go anywhere with something.
Yes, totally. Which ties into yoga for sure. I wanted to ask about yoga. When you saw this sign to be a yoga instructor, were you already practicing yoga?
Yes. So I started practicing yoga in classes when I was 15. And then prior to that, I knew of yoga, and I had like meditation and a lot of those types of stress relieving practices in my life prior. But when I was 15 was when I took my first class, which was not the most positive experience, very humbling, but I kept going back because it felt so good. And so by the time I think I was 19, maybe 20 when I got my training. By the time I was at that point, I felt like I knew enough about the yoga studio that I was like, well, this might be a possibility, but it's not, until I finally got that push.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. That's very cool that you did that. And also so cool that your husband, helped you to see the possibility there. Okay. So you get started on YouTube and you start doing yoga. And I remember, you used to do it. It was like in you could see your kitchen in the background, I think, like a kitchen island. Was that your first yoga? The first place you did yoga was just in your house there? I mean, when you started on YouTube? Or was there an iteration before that?
There was before that. So that was my, my Denver apartment, the one with the kitchen island in the back. And prior to the Denver apartment, I was filming, in my apartment in Minnesota. So I'm from Minnesota. And my husband and I, after he graduated college, we lived in my apartment in Minnesota for a little while, and then we lived in his parents' basement for a little while, and then we moved to Colorado together. And so everything before the Denver apartment kitchen setting was all in Minnesota. And I had this weird notion that every set had to be different. And I don't know why I thought that, but it made it way too difficult for me. Yeah. So all the sets before that, are like, I would redo an entire room just to like have something fresh or different. And actually, I think those videos are all taken down now. And they're in my oldies playlist on my app instead, because they're just they don't represent my brand anymore, but I'm still happy that I have them because they really do show that you can start somewhere and get better each time you do it.
Yes. Okay. I love that. Well, I'm kind of bummed that they're not on there because I wanted to go back and see all these different sets. That's fun. Well, okay. So one really thing that I want to highlight today, and that I think is really interesting about your journey, is you started this, you started on YouTube, you started this career when you didn't have kids. And since you have had 2 babies, so your son, Roman, how old is he?
2.5.
2.5. And then you have a baby who is young, an infant, right? So I would love for you to talk to us about kind of how you've transitioned over the years. So of course you continue to transition and to grow and to develop, but as you've become a mom, talk to us about how that shifted, first with 1 baby and then with 2.
Yeah. This has been quite a journey for me. Owning and running a business that's growing, especially as my babies are growing. Prior to having children, I always knew that I wanted to have a lot of kids, wanted to have a big family, and I wanted to be like this matriarch that like kind of was the glue to keep the family structure and really to keep like the family thriving. I told my husband that back when we were dating, that it was just that important to me, that was one of my highest values. And he agreed. So we went forward with that. I never thought that I would be working. I never thought I would run my own business. And I never thought that I'd be where I am right now. And that, I think, was one of the biggest struggles in the last year for me, is kind of turning my mindset around, because I always thought that I would be, a stay-at-home mother who had all the activities and, could, give 100% of my attention to my kids and have the dinner on the table and have the house spotless and the laundry was, always kept up with. And I know that's a complete fantasy, even if I wasn't working. So now that I'm working and I have that fantasy in my head, I was putting so much pressure on myself, and my expectations for myself were so high that it was putting me into this spiral, a mental spiral. And I didn't realize what was happening until after I had my first son, Roman. When he was an infant, I was trying to work while he was in the rock and play next to me, or he would sit in my lap, or I would nurse him and work. And I realized really quickly that doesn't work. It's not fair to my children to try to be so engulfed into something and to try to, bat them away a little bit. And so I slowly learned over time with Roman how to make it work, but it did take hitting rock bottom first. And that rock bottom was postpartum anxiety. I was having one too many nightcaps every night. I was just really, really stressed out. And I was seeing a therapist at the time for the postpartum anxiety. And I'm so glad that I was. His counsel was extremely helpful. And he asked me at one point, well, what would happen if you took a break from the YouTube, from Sarah Beth Yoga, from the business? And my first reaction was just claws out. No way. That's not happening. I would lose everything. And then I realized I am losing everything. So I decided I'm going to take a break. And that happened at the same time that my husband filed bankruptcy on a bar that we owned. And that was another huge stress at the time, because he was gone 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so he had just filed bankruptcy, and he also within a week had just gotten this dream job an hour away. So we packed up our apartment and we moved and we got a townhome. And so it was really good timing for me to take a break. And I put all of that together, and I made an announcement on YouTube saying, you guys, I'm going to go away for a little bit. This is what's happening. I'm so stressed out. I need to take time for myself. And so I shut my computer, and I put I actually deleted the social media apps off my phone. And I think I spent between 6 to 12 weeks not doing Sarah Beth Yoga. And that was my rock bottom, but that was also my coming back to life. Because I realized I need to find better balance, and I need to really hone in on what my expectations are. So when I did start working again, I found a friend who lived nearby, and she took Roman in. I think it was 3 half days a week. And that was so essential for me to actually sit down and work. And I felt like I was able to actually create a balance. And then after that, I learned that because I'm working from home, I can't expect that I'm also going to have dinner on the table every night, because when I'm working, my brain is so far in one direction, I cannot fathom what we're going to have for dinner. And then that was stressful for me. So we started looking into services like those meal box, recipe box services.
Right.
That was fun for a while. And then when things get busier, then we looked at, there's another service called Freshly, which is pre-made dinners, that get sent to you on a subscription service. And I even looked at, a service that was grocery delivery, because my husband tore his Achilles around the same time. And so going to Costco as a family was everything just kind of fell apart in order for us to put the pieces back together. And I learned so much in that time that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to even pay for help. And that was another thing I had to get over, was this mental block, a money mental block, that I needed to do everything myself. And why would we pay for something that I could do myself? And so I turn that around into, if I have the ability to give someone else an income in order to provide me a service, like that's like helping to make the world go round. It's making me happier and less stressed, and it's helping someone else too.
That is so good, because it's so hard for moms to think like that. I know it is for me, and it's so hard to get over the guilt. And how, I love kind of this, the way that you've explained this, and I think a lot of people can relate. We have this idea of how we're going to be as a mom, and we're going to have dinner on the table, and we're going to do crafts, and our kids are going to be dressed so cute, and this whole picture. And I don't know if it's, I mean, part of it, some moms are still at home, and yet we never, even if you're home 24/7, you're not living up to your own expectations, because, that's just not how it is. Life is just not like that. But I think a lot more moms are working, or working from home, or trying to figure out this balance that you're talking about. It's just really hard. And I love that you're giving us permission to take it a little easier on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about balance is that it's a constant teetering.
Yes.
Right? You're going to fall off on one side where you're overdoing it and underdoing yourself, or you're going to come off the other side where you're not doing enough. And I mean, because even when I took that break, it was like a 6 to 12 week break, because between 6 and 12 weeks was when I started creatively getting back in the work brain. But when I took that break, because I wasn't doing anything, I put so many hours of work into my son's first birthday party, because I had nothing else to do with my, like, that creative energy. And the funny thing about that is that the day he had his birthday party, we had a foot of snow just pound on us. And so no one came. And it was such a, like, it was like someone was shaking me saying, hey, maybe you should put your efforts into something that's a little bit more productive, because, hey, he doesn't know what's going on right now. And neither does anyone else. So.
Yeah. Yeah, such a good point. Okay. Well, I want to hear a little bit more then about the guilt, how you've gotten over that, because I heard it coming out as you were talking in the beginning, like this, he has to be right by your side, and you're going to work with him next to you. And then you're able to, now you have someone watching your kids, you have the help mentally, like that guilt. How have you gotten over that?
So, and that's, like I said, it's a constant balance. So I still have moments of guilt. And I think that as moms, and the expectations that we put on ourselves and what we consume through what society expects of us, that it's going to be a constant recognizing and then processing of guilt. And for me, so when I got pregnant with my second, his name is Napoleon. We call him Leo, and he's 5 months old now. When I got pregnant with him, I told myself, like, I'm going to do it differently the next time around, because the first time around, I put so much pressure on myself that it spiraled, and I don't want to do that again, because my son Roman needs me, and so does my husband, and so does Napoleon. Like, we need to find a better balance as a family. And Sarah Beth Yoga was growing rapidly. So in 2017 and in 2018, it has been insane growth. And so I've had to keep up with it. And part of that has been to, outsource what I don't absolutely need to be doing, and letting go of that control is difficult, but so worth it. So, when we, right before we had my second son, we moved, into a house, and I told myself, you know what, we're going to hire a housekeeper, because I don't want to spend my free time scrubbing the toilets or the showers. And so right now we have a housekeeper that comes in once a month to do those things. And I would love to work up to like twice a month. Even once a week would be like, I mean, the things that would take off my plate would be nice. But there is an element of guilt there that holds me back. And that guilt is both financial. Because again, it's like that block, a mental block. Why would I pay someone? Why would I spend our family's money on something that I could do myself? And then there's the guilt of like, why am I not doing this? And I think that for me to get through that and to process that was one, talking about it openly. Almost as if I was thinking to myself, like the way I'm talking to you about it right now is like, it's like processing. So when I talk to my husband about it, he can hear those expectations, and even the other day he agreed that like there was like dried banana from my son's like, high chair that was like splatted on the floor. And I was like, hey, it almost seems like, I'm not accusing you, but it almost seems like every time you walked by that, you saw it and you were like, that's not my responsibility. That's Sarah's. And he's like, I got to be honest with you. He's like, I never actually thought that, but I can see how that could seem like that. He's like, I will do a better job helping you. And that's the thing, is that if we never communicated about that little banana splat would have been something that would have just festered and festered and festered. And then it could have turned into something bigger. And as long as I'm communicating, so talking about it, it allows us to work through it as a family, and allows me to work through the guilt. And then we can talk about bringing on, help if we need it. Something else that has helped a lot with the guilt is, I'm always in, a growth mindset. So I read books on personal development, and I seek out opportunities and events on personal development. And it's funny when I feel like maybe there were a few years there where the personal development section of like Barnes and Noble was like this, like, ew, you're going over there? Like, okay, good luck. But like, what are you doing if you're not growing? So now I really do seek out personal development. And the reason for that is because I've seen so much growth personally from doing that. Yeah. I've worked through the guilt. I've worked through the money blocks. I've worked through the mental blocks. I've recognized pieces of my past that have been continuing to affect my future. And just recognizing patterns makes it that much easier to break them. So both of those things, communicating and personal development.
Ah, I love those. I think that's such a great answer. And that experience that you shared is just so powerful because, first of all, it makes you, we all get it. There's banana splats somewhere in everybody's house at some point, There's just, if you have kids, that's just how it is. And yet, I love the conversation that you had with your husband because we take it on ourselves and feel like it has to be us. And I love that you stood up and had the conversation, and it helps us to grow as a couple. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but how powerful to have that open dialogue and to recognize what's expected of each person. I love the idea also that you're talking as you talk through what you're expecting of yourself. I think it's really powerful when you hear yourself say it, because when it's in your head, it sort of, you can trick yourself like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I'm the mom. Of course I should do everything. But when you say it out loud, well, since I'm the mom, I should have to clean up every banana mess, change every diaper, get dinner on the table every night, and have a successful business. And, and when you say it out loud, if a friend was saying that to you, and you heard it, you'd be like, you know what? That's really a lot you're putting it on yourself. And when you can hear it, I think that you can kind of see like, oh, maybe I don't have to do all that. Maybe it's okay to get help. So I love that idea of just talking through it. I think that's really powerful for everyone. And, it can be with professional talking through therapy, or to your spouse, or to a friend, or even journaling is another way to get your thoughts all out there. But I think that's really powerful to hear or see your own thoughts. I think that makes a big difference.
Journaling, I completely agree with you on journaling, because when you do that, like you said, you're putting it in words, but then those words are staring right back at you.
Yes.
And you'll recognize, if you journal every day, you'll recognize when there's a pattern. When you start journaling the same thing over and over again, and you're like, wait a minute.
There must be something I need to work on here. That keeps coming up. Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful to see that. Okay. In the little bit of time we have left, you talked about, doing things differently, with your second child. And I can tell, you've you are doing things differently, and it comes across in the way that you're expressing how you feel about this whole time. Anything that you can add to that about how things have shifted this second time around? And I imagine, I know the more kids you add, the more craziness, of course, in life, but it sounds like things are less crazy. So talk to us about the difference now that you have number two.
A lot has changed in the last year. So when I was pregnant last year in November, we signed on to, we hired consultants for my business. And that was the biggest financial move that I made for my business, up to that moment. And my husband was working full time and he wanted to do it. And I said, no way. Like, I can do all of this. What are they going to teach us that I don't know? But he convinced me to do it. And I told him that if we're going to do this, it's 100% you. And he surprised me. I mean, he really went for it and learned everything and applied and would come to me with information and we would apply and we saw some massive results. So we continued working with these consultants. And in that time, I learned that I don't have to be a solopreneur. Solo entrepreneur, however you say it, like which basically means like I don't have to do it all myself. And that has been a very difficult thing for me to learn because I do very much like the control of doing it all myself. And it's just that much easier if I don't have to train people. But if this business is going to grow and I'm going to continue to reach more and more people, I need to bring people on because my highest value is my family. And so for me to spend 100 hours behind my desk is like, that's going to make me miserable and it's going to make my family miserable. So we ended up partnering with my consultants, brought them on for a partnership so that they can help me create and reach and really do it at a high level, like all of the internet marketing at a high level. And also, my business got to a point where my husband was able to quit his job. And that made a huge difference in our lives. It was difficult for him because he's a team player. He's not one to be a homebody or work from home. So, that was difficult for him. I know how to work from home. So I know how to take advantage of the opportunities and the times that I have, but he had to learn that on his own. But now as a family, we can really our schedule is that in the mornings we go to the gym as a family. The boys get to go into the child center. My husband and I get to go work out or do yoga or take care of ourselves. And then we can also go to the cafe and work for an hour. And feel like, we can actually put ourselves into our work and then go pick up the boys, go home, do our lunch routine, our nap routine, our afternoon, which we call crazy hour, which is actually a couple of hours, which are just crazy insane, but the boys need our full attention. I think you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah. And then we do dinner as a family. Then we do bedtime routines as a family. Then the boys go down. My husband and I crash on the couch by 7:30 p.m., just exhausted. And that's our day-to-day routine, except 2 days a week, the boys go to preschool for the entire day. And those are the days that if I'm going to film, if I'm going to go do photo shoots, if I'm going to need more than an hour of focused effort, those are the days that I do that. And those days really allow me to focus so that the other days I can be with my kids. And I've learned that I have to put my phone in the other room. If I'm with my children and my phone is like face up in a room, I feel compelled that I have to go look at it for something. And I don't know what it is, what I'm looking for. But it's almost like there's an email that I didn't respond to, or there's a Facebook message, and the reason, and I think this is a really big problem for people everywhere is, first of all, these apps and social media and internet, businesses understand what makes you tick. And so they know that a little red notification is going to make your brain go, what is that? Click on that.
Yeah.
I need that now. And when you start checking things, but you don't have time to answer them, then you're just adding it to your brain, list of things that you need to do. And then you can't keep track of it. And all of a sudden now you feel an anxiety that you're missing something. You didn't respond to something. You got to check something. So I learned that, you know what? Between nap time and bedtime, I don't need my phone. the people who need me are in this room right now. So I'm going to put my phone in that room and that's it. And that has helped a lot. So it's little things like that, first of all, like outsourcing, getting freshly meal delivery on my work days, or doing grocery delivery if our family is just so busy where we can't go to the grocery store, which we really do like going to the grocery store as a family. Having my husband home, having a routine, and then having the kids in childcare so I can have focused effort, and then putting my phone away. That's all part of what is keeping me in balance, although it is a balance.
Yes, it's a continual process. You said something so beautiful that I want to make sure people caught. You said the people who need me are in this room. And I think that is such a good lesson for all of us. We can put our phone away and just be with our kids. That more than anything is going to make such a difference in the presence that we feel in, being there with our kids, being present, knowing what is going on and what they're saying and what they're feeling. We're going to be able to engage more when we do that. So I love the things that you're doing and the way that you're making this work with your family. I think for so many moms, we're all in the same boat. We're trying to figure it out. And it is so helpful to hear, how other moms are doing it. So thank you for sharing. For people who want to go, and I totally recommend you guys that you go and check out her yoga. Where can they find you?
So you could look me up on YouTube. That's Sarah Beth Yoga. You can spell that any which way, you'll find me. Really, you could just Google Sarah Beth Yoga and you'll find my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that. But I want you to check out the YouTube for yoga videos, but really it's my Instagram stories that I'm putting myself out there on right now. I'm trying to show just the day-to-day life and turn the camera on more often because it is that much more raw and less produced. So I'd love if you guys would come over to Instagram, come say hi, tell me that Chanel sent you, tell me that you listened to the podcast.
All right. Awesome. Well, definitely go check that out, you guys. And I feel like we have learned so much. Any final thoughts for us before we go?
Yeah. Be easy on yourself. It's all a balance. And I think that no matter what, and no matter who you are or where you are in life, you're going to have good days and you're going to have not so great days. And you need those not so great days in order to even appreciate the good days. So no matter where you are, and if you're having a bad day, just remember that it's all part of the balance.
I love it. Be easy on yourself, mamas. That is such good advice and something that we can all definitely work on. So thank you again, Sarah Beth, for being with us. And thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. So glad you guys could join us for this episode. I hope you loved it as much as I did. And I also hope that you'll come and tell me. Let me know what you liked. Visit me at Instagram or on Facebook at Moms Who Know Podcast.